people have their minds made up one way or the other, and they will stay that way until, those are not my slides, so until proven otherwise. And a lot of what people go into, whether as a scientist or speaking for myself as a writer, that the subject that you choose or that chooses you is something that you're in love with, and you don't let it go very easily. I thought that what I was working on now had no relation to SETI, but actually, since I'm working on a project about Copernicus, it is, in fact, quite relevant, because I've heard the eventual discovery of a signal described as the next Copernican revolution, or something that would trump the Copernican revolution. I actually think that the discovery of extrasolar planets has already done that, and that when the signal comes through, it will happen again. So we have that to look forward to. And Copernicus is relevant in another way, because he certainly had the ultimate giggle factor subject, to the extent that he could not speak about it to anyone, and even decided when he had finished his book that he would not publish it, because he was so sure that he would be laughed at. So when people are laughing at you and giving you a hard time about SETI research, just remember that one of the greatest scientific revolutions ever began as something that everybody thought was ridiculous, and something he had no evidence for. But that didn't stop him from 30 years of hard work to turn it into a compelling argument. So those are my opening comments. Thank you.
I didn't realize I was on this panel toward the end of last week, and only a day or so ago did I realize it was after dinner. I ordinarily agree to speak after dinner only if the audience is drunk, and I'm drunk as well, and then I talk about unicorns. Could we accept what? I'm sorry. Could we accept the fact that there are no unicorns? No. Could we accept the fact that we're alone? I'm glad to see that there's a point of controversy here. Yeah, no problem. It doesn't bother me at all. In part because we'll never prove that we're alone. All we'll prove is we can search for a while, and the results of our search can show that we're not searching right in the right way. We don't understand their habits, and if I feel uncomfortable being alone in the universe, which I don't particularly, it really doesn't bother me. It may bother some people. David, it does.
Doesn't bother me, no. I just didn't think there was evidence to be able to say we were alone.
Yeah, I see no way that, unless you take the Fermi paradox even more seriously than I do, you can't really say much about us being alone. And so it's not a question I've actually thought about very much, and nor do I have very much to say about it.
Mary? Yes.
First of all, there's a lot of people who not only could accept being alone, but they would much prefer it. And I don't know whether this is a psychological thing or what. There are people who want to know what's over the next hill, and there are people who don't want to know what's over the next hill because it's scary what might be over the next hill. That, however, to my mind, is the end of progress. There are things out there. We don't know what they are. We don't know whether we can discover them with radio astronomy. We don't know whether they're alive. We don't know whether they're rocks. But it's human to try to figure out what's out there, to look out there and say, what is it, and want to go over the next hill. When the Mars exploration rovers landed on Mars, they thought they were going to go just for, I don't know what, a few hundred meters. And there was a hill called Husband Hill, and they said, oh, that's way too far away. Well, they did go there, and they went a lot farther, because that's what people do. They go over the next hill. They want to know what's over the next hill. You've done it yourself. You've probably walked somewhere, taken a hike, or maybe even taken a drive, and you've gone to the point where you said, oh, gee, I should go home, but what's over the next hill? And I think there's a kind of, there's something in humans that do that, that causes us to do that, and I think it probably is what has allowed a lot of the advancement that we have in a practical sense too. So I think we're going to continue to look, but there are people who don't want to look, and I think these are people who are afraid. I think they are afraid to have their preconceptions destroyed, and I'm not one of them. I'm not saying they're wrong, but I think that's the way they are. Now, science fiction writers, now to be a little bit more trivial, science fiction writers would, of course, one of the people who are not going to accept this are science fiction writers, except for a particular breed called mundane science fiction writers. Oh, you've all heard of them. Okay, no, they do not want aliens. And I can kind of understand that, but we would be a lot poorer for for topics of science fiction. Here are some examples. Another thing that would be, very happy if we discovered that we were alone, if we could somehow or other prove that, and that's going to be hard to prove, but if we could prove it somehow or other, and I don't know whether that could be done within our lifetimes. In addition to science fiction writers having a lot of problems coming up with new ideas, plot ideas, I think William Proxmire would probably rise up with great glee from his grave. Well, the traditional answer to the question of, what would happen if we found out we were alone is that it would make human life more important, because we're just precious, we're the only thing in the universe like it, and it would maybe also provide an impetus to desire to explore and colonize beyond Earth, because we know we could do it without creating some sort of destruction. We wouldn't be destroying valuable animals, as the people in this picture are doing, or valuable pieces of rock, like this human machine is doing. That's actually a rover, a proposed rover. I found a couple of blogs where people explored this exact question. They said, they didn't put it that way. They said, what would you do if you thought that there was no sapient intelligence outside our biosphere? And you understand that the people who answer questions like this on blogs, generally, they do not represent their best selves. Because often, if you look at the post, it's been done at 2:30 in the morning, and there's a lot of misspelled things in it, and you can tell from the vocabulary this is not typical of their thought process, and it's possible they're either extremely sleepy or drunk. There are, however, we wouldn't have to worry about contaminating another world, but the other thing is we would feel safe. We wouldn't feel like, well, maybe there is something out there, whether it's intentional, its hostilities intentional or not. We would still feel safe from, I don't know, bacterial contamination, for example. But I think that still, even if we could come up with some kind of proof that there were no sentient intelligences out there, maybe no life whatsoever, I think human beings would come up with some way of rationalizing the other. And I think some of the ways they might do it, they might come up with what I call the Ursula K. Le Guin solution, that at some time in the distant past, humanity has been seeded throughout the galaxy by a proto-human. And that slightly different genetic mutations exist on different worlds, such as the people of Winter, the planet in the left hand of darkness, who have no specific gender except during a month period when they can breed. Or they might decide that people, fiction writers and the imagination generally might decide that sapient life exists in alternative dimensions. Or they might genetically engineer other species, cats and elephants, to enhance this intelligence. This is, I don't know whether you recognize, this is, I don't know, this is a little creature that comes back to Earth, you know, and it's a sweet little guy, you know, and there's a lot of sweet little mechanical aliens. I'm sure you've seen many of them. But they're aliens and they're self-created. Or we might decide that we were going to genetically engineer ourselves or our domestic animals in order to make them intelligent so they could have conversations with them, or if we could make, or possibly so that we could make fun of them. But I think one of the things that will certainly happen is we're certainly going to enhance robotic intelligence so that it becomes almost alien. We're already talking, we already have sent robotic missions off to other planets, obviously, many of them. But I think at some point or other they're going to become self-aware, they're going to be self-directed, and maybe they won't even report back. And maybe eventually we will leave the planet as biological creatures and we'll encounter these robotic intelligences and not know that they are our, quote, children. This is a picture found on the web, supposedly a Matryoshka brain. I am not entirely, well, I guess, yeah, you can see it sort of, yeah, it's spheres within spheres. Yeah, you can see that, but there's...
Explain what that is.
Do I have to explain? I don't know. I probably, everybody here probably knows more about it than I do, okay? I'm an English teacher, okay? You know, they're nested. They harvest all the energy from a sun to create a massive networked brain, and if there's some energy left over, well then there's another shell, and that harvests that energy, and it keeps going. I don't know how far it goes, but this one is still glowing, so I assume there must be some energy left, and maybe that's, maybe we're inside the Matryoshka brain. I'm not sure exactly. I read the article, and I was not sure that the artist quite knew what he was doing, but I thought it was really colorful so that you would like it. And but I think there is the possibility that aliens will be robotic when and if we discover them. And if that is true, who knows? However, I wasn't asked that question when I got on this panel. I was asked, could we accept whether we're alone? And the answer to that is, I don't think we ever could. And I think if we discover that we're alone, what we'll do is we will create aliens, whether we create them in our imagination or whether we create them by creating robotic probes. Thank you.